freak me out, but please tell me there.
No. There aren't any spiders or snakes.
Thank God.
Just 100 gnome creatures that take them prisoner.
So, last Narnia book. What are we doing after this?
I don't know. Have you hunted down another book?
No. You do realize I don't actually hunt for them, you know.
You picked the name Nyx Huntress. You can't blame me for using it.
Yes, I can.
Anyway, we are on our last Narnia book, appropriately called The Last Battle. And it's about as cheerful as the last one.
Great.
It all begins with Shift the ape and Puzzle the donkey. Shift is clever and a master of guilt trips. Puzzle is puzzled by most things. One day, the two go down to Cauldron Pool. It's not actually a cauldron, it's a waterfall that flows with so much force that the water in the pool looks like a boiling cauldron. And on this day, Shift noticed something come down the falls, and he persuades Puzzle to go get it.
Is he okay?
He's wet and cold and miserable, but not hurt. Shift realizes that the thing that came over the falls was a lion skin. Not from a talking lion, but Puzzle still feels they should respect it. Shift persuades Puzzle to go look for bananas and turns the skin into a coat for his donkey friend.
That's just messed up.
Yeah, it gets worse.
Worse?
Yeah, see, the story now changes to Tyrion's perspective. He's the current king of Narnia.
Thank you.
Well, Tyrion is hanging out with his best friend Jewel the Unicorn. They've heard all sorts of rumors about Aslan's return, and we're so excited. It had been so long since he had been there. But their excitement was cut short. First by Runewit the Centaur, who reported that men lie, but the stars do not, and they are not in position to herald the great lion's coming. Then, interrupted by a dryad running, crying out for help, before her tree was cut and she fell dead with it.
That is so messed up.
It gets worse. Tyrion sends Runewit to Cair Paravel to bring soldiers while he and Jewel set out to see what is happening. They find a crowd of people, Calormans, cutting down trees belonging to the Dryads, trees that descended from the apple Diggory planted at the beginning of the world. Not only are Calormans in Narnia, but they are forcing the Narnian horses to work beyond their ability.
If these are talking animals from Narnia, they would be able to say, hey, I'm tired, please stop. But no, these Calormans just decide to keep working them, but that's not fair. Normal animals can't even do that. They will literally work themselves until they can't anymore, and then hence why horses, for example, if carriages downtown doing like carriage rides and stuff, they will literally collapse because they're not meant to do that. What are they even thinking?
Okay, well, when Tyrion and Jewel hear one of the horses scream, their anger overcomes them and they kill the men responsible.
Good.
The remaining Calormans and even some of the talking beasts there try to capture them, but they ran and escaped. Temporarily. The horror and guilt of what they'd done drove them to turn themselves in.
Wait, what? Hang on. Are they insane?
They are noble and good.
And also insane, because who would do that?
And so they turn themselves in and begin to see what is really happening. They see who's really calling the shots. Shift, the ape. Jewel is led away, but Tyrion is able to observe and learns many things. Shift has partnered with the Calormans and plans to remake Narnia, putting all of his fellow creatures in slavery. But the primary claim he makes is that Aslan and Tash are one and the same.
Who's Tash?
Tash is the Calormene god, a monster with 4 arms, the head of a bird, and requires human sacrifice. Hey, Sam, still watching bees?
Bye, Sam.
Tyrion was tied, standing against a tree away from the ape and crowd of animals. Night fell. A small group of little animals came and brought him a little bit of supper. They were too afraid of Aslan to release him. In the distance, Tyrion saw a fire lit by a building and something come out of it. It could have been a lion. He'd never seen one before. Shortly after, the creature went back into the building. The fire died, and all was dark and silent.
And then the ghosts came. Woo!
And then Tyrion started thinking about history.
Nerd.
He remembers all these old stories, like how his great-great-great-great-great-grandpa, Rillian, was rescued by kids from another world, or how his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa was helped by kids from another world, or how the White Witch was stopped by kids from another world.
I'm sensing a pattern.
So did Tyrion, and he called out to Aslan and the mysterious children for help. He began to dream, or something. He saw a table with an old man and a woman, 2 younger men, a boy, and 2 girls, the 7 friends of Narnia. And then he woke up. And what a strange thing to wake to. Barely minutes later, a boy and a girl appeared before him, dressed in the oddest clothes. They introduced themselves as Eustace Scrubb and Jill Pole.
How much do Eustace parents hate him to give him that terrible name? How much do his parents hate him?
Nix, seriously, it's just a name. Let it go, like the kids do with Tyrion.
What?
The kids cut Tyrion loose from the tree, and the 3 sneak away. Tyrion eats the sandwiches they had brought with them while they explain how they got to Narnia. For the first time, at least recorded, time moved faster in our world than theirs.
Is that even possible?
Yep, I didn't tell you, but when Tyrion dreamed of the group the night before, they saw him. He was like a ghost. They knew something Narnian was up, and so they came up with a plan. Professor Kirk, the old man, told them about the magic rings he had used to get to Narnia long ago. They were still where he had buried them, but the house had been sold. So Peter and Edmund dressed up like plumbers, snuck into the yard, and dug them up. The next day, Jill, Eustace, Lucy, Polly, and Diggory took the train down to pick up the rings, but something happened. There was a sharp lurch, and the 2 youngest found themselves back in Narnia.
A lurch?
It'll be important later. Near the end of the tale, the 3 had made their way to an old tower. It wasn't very tall or pleasant, but there were some stores of food and weapons they could use. Even better, materials they could use to disguise themselves as Calormenes. Their first task, to save Jewel and then end Shift's rule. Tyrion takes the rest of the day to rest. It's hard to do that when you're tied to a tree. And in the dead of night, they creep back to the hill with the stable. Jill proves herself the best ranger of the group, leading the way silently by starlight. When they arrive, Tyrion tricks the guard and forces him to show where Jewel is. He leaves the children safely behind while he goes to free his friend. Once Tyrion and Jewel return, they are all quite shocked to find Jill has disappeared. She returns shortly, though, with a creature, though they can't see what it is in the darkness. On their way back to the tower, they discover she had found the false Aslan and rescued Puzzle from the stable.
Oh, good. Poor guy didn't deserve any of that.
He really didn't. But that wasn't the only thing that happened on their return. They happened upon a group of dwarves being marched to Calormene under the guard of 4 guards. Yeah. When Tyrion declared they had been tricked and showed them Puzzle, still wearing the lion skin, they were quite angry. Tyrion hoped they would join his group.
But
after helping dispatch the guards, they all turned away, determined not to be taken in by anyone again. Only one dwarf, Poggin, joined them. And his news wasn't very hopeful. Poggin told him that Tyrion's rescue is being covered up, that Shift claimed Aslan had eaten him as a punishment.
Yeesh.
Not only that, but adding to the claim that Aslan and Tash are one and the same, he gives them the new name of Tashlan. This claim dismayed the Narnians, but in the end, Shift wasn't really in charge anymore. A Calormene called Rishta and a cat named Ginger had pretty much taken over the operation.
What's wrong with your cat?
Oh, it's okay, Sam, you're fine. But yeah, not only had they taken over, neither one of them believes in the existence of Aslan or Tash. And unfortunately for them, both exist. And soon after breakfast, Tash passes by the tower, bringing a hideous feeling of gloom and fear with him. After Tash is gone, they make their plan. They'll go back to Cair-Paravel, meet up with Runewit and the army, and take down the enemy.
Okay, that's reasonable. Get reinforcements, go after the Calamines.
They don't make it there. Partway to the castle, they're intercepted by Farsight the Eagle. Cair-Paravel has been taken by the Tisrock's forces. There's no army left to save them. The kingdom of Narnia has fallen. They are on their own.
That's awful.
Their plans change immediately. They can't put it off. They go back to Stable Hill. Jill and Eustace are rightly terrified. They're going into battle after all, and it's a fight they can't probably win. What happens if they're slain in Narnia? During the daylight, the group crept behind the stable and slept till night when the Narnians were forcefully assembled to see Tashlan once again. The heroes were ready to show everyone Puzzle, still dressed in his lion skin, and tell them the truth. However, Rishta and Ginger had a plan. They had Shift tell the beasts that some creature, some donkey, had dressed itself up in a lion skin and was parading around pretending it was Tashlan.
Ooh.
Jill cuts the lion skin off of Puzzle right away. Odds are if any of the talking beasts saw him, he'd be ripped to shreds. Shift continues and says Tashlan refused to come out of the stable to see them anymore.
That sneaky, conniving little...
The dwarves don't buy it for a minute.
Good.
But their mocking doesn't last long. Shift tries to turn it on them. They could see Tashlan if they wanted to, if they went into the stable one at a time.
What's the catch?
Ginger the cat went in first. He had barely disappeared inside the stable before they heard an awful yowling. Ginger bolted out of the stable and into a tree, and as they all watched, he shrank. His yowls became even less understandable. Before they knew it, he was no longer a talking beast.
That can happen?
Yeah, back at the beginning of the world, and handed down to every cub, chick, puppy, Aslan had told the animals that if they weren't good, they would lose the ability to talk. But none of the evil schemers had seen this coming. Something was wrong. And then, something else unexpected happened. A young Calamine asked to enter the stable. At first, Rishta tried to stop him, but the young man was determined. Shortly after he entered the stable, a head rolled out the door. But it didn't belong to the young soldier. The head belonged to someone else. Shift tried to goad another into going to the stable. The Calamines leapt too to try and force a good boar. And suddenly, Tyrion and the heroes rushed to the front of the stable, facing the crowd. Tyrion called, "Here stand I, Tyrion of Narnia, in Aslan's name, to prove with my body that Tash is a foul fiend, the ape a manifold traitor, and these Calamines worthy of death. To my side, all true Narnians!"
Yes, let the battle begin!
Within seconds, Rishta had fallen back with his people, and Tyrion threw Shift into the stable. There was a flash of light and a minor earthquake. The talking animals trembled in fear of Tashlan, except for the dogs. 15 talking dogs rushed to our hero's side, along with a number of smaller animals, the boar, and a bear. Tyrion sent some of the little animals to free the horses, and then round 1 of the battle began. In the first round, it didn't go well. A few Calamines were felled, but the Narnians lost 3 dogs and the bear.
You know, I don't think I like this story anymore.
If you want to step outside for a while, I'll come get you after this. You really aren't going to like what comes next.
No, I'll stay.
The dwarves started mocking the Calamines. For half a moment, the Narnians thought they might be on their side, but hooves were approaching. As the horses came, the dwarves loosed their arrows and felled every single one. The battle plan changed. Staying with their back to the stable was dangerous. They could be forced in. Tyrion led another foray against the Calormenes, but this time their fallback point would be the rocks to their left. They were doing well, but Jill, farther back so she could support with her bow, saw that for every Calormene that fell, another took its place. Finally, Tyrion called for a retreat. They all rushed back to the rocks. All but Eustace. He had been captured and was thrown into the stable.
They should have taken a branch from the bonfire and burned that stupid thing to the ground.
Our heroes have a short reprieve while the dwarves turn their arrows onto the Calormenes. The bonfire has burned lower now, and they can barely see. Rishta sent his men against the dwarves, and soon 11 dwarves were cast into the stable. The final round was about to begin. One by one, the heroes fell. Jill was thrown into the stable. Tyrion was separated in the fighting and soon found himself by the stable door fighting Rishta himself. In a final, desperate move, Tyrion pulled himself and Rishta into the stable.
But, wait, Narnia lost?
Yeah. But Tyrion was surprised. The inside of the stable was brightly lit, and they weren't alone. Tash was there. He snapped up Rishta and then turned his eye to Tyrion. Tyrion was frozen. And then a voice called out, "Begone, monster, and take your lawful prey to your own place. In the name of Aslan and Aslan's great father, the Emperor over sea." Tash vanished, and Tyrion found himself face to face with 7 kings and queens.
Random.
Less than you'd think. Those 7 strangers were Peter, Edmund, Lucy, Eustace, Jill, Diggory, and Polly. And while they were inside the stable, they were also in Aslan's country.
Okay, now you've really lost me. Aslan's country was code for heaven, but they're also inside a stable, and all the people from the real world are there, but they're not dead. Or are they this time? I'm getting a headache.
They are in Aslan's country. The stable door is there, and the door frame. You can walk completely around it, but if you look through a crack in the door, you can see the remains of the bonfire on Stable Hill. Peter and Lucy explain what had happened to them. See, Peter and Edmund were on the train platform, waiting for the rest of the group to arrive on the train. Apparently, their parents had decided to come for a visit that day. The train took the turn too fast. It felt like something hit them, and then they were here.
Oh, so that lurch
Was a train crash. Soon after arriving in Aslan's country, they found the door. A man came through with a long sword, but he couldn't see them. When Ginger came in, Tash appeared, and the cat ran away. When the young Calormene soldier came in, he fought the man at the door and overcame him. Shift was eaten by Tash. The dwarves weren't, but they had worked so hard to convince themselves not to be taken in by anything else. They thought they were still in the stable, and nothing would persuade them otherwise.
That's ridiculous. They were so against being tricked that they literally tricked themselves.
Yeah, that about sums it up. Aslan appears, after all, it's his country, and even when he summons a sumptuous feast for the dwarves, they still believe they're in a stable.
Morons.
Now we begin to come to the end of the story. Aslan stands in the doorway and summons time.
Who?
A giant who had been asleep for thousands of years. At Aslan's call, he sounded his horn and the stars began to fall. Now, stars in their world are people, and as they fell, they assembled themselves to Aslan's right, and his shadow stretched to the left. Creatures began to come, running as fast as they could from all over the world, and they each stared right into Aslan's face. Those who looked at him and feared to his left and vanished in his shadow. Those who looked at him with joy came in through the door, and the door was always the right size. Many ran on to see what Aslan's country held for them, but some stayed. The humans were joined again by Poggin the dwarf, Runewit the centaur, Farsight the eagle, Jewel the unicorn, and every single one of the loyal, loving, slobbering dogs.
I am so happy that the dogs get to go to Aslan's country and live a long, happy life because, by gosh, they deserve it!
Giant lizards ate all the remaining vegetation. The sea covered the land, and finally, the giant time extinguished the sun itself. Peter closed the door. Narnia was no more. Aslan called to them, "Come further in, come further up," and bounded away. And so they did. They found many things along the way, including Puzzle, who was much happier here than at any point they'd seen him before, the young Calamine soldier, who turned out to be a good and honorable man, and a waterfall that they could swim up. Farther up and farther in, they found a walled place. A horn sounded their welcome, the gate opened, and Reepicheep came to greet them. And inside were all of the Narnians from the dawn of time and Aslan himself. And there they remained to this day.
Wait, that's it?
That's it. They are there to this day, even though their story is over. And now their tale is told.
Guess I need to hunt up the next one. Did you make anything to go with this story?
You'll see it in the next video. Good luck, Nix. Find us a good one.
I'm off.
Stay safe, don't get into more trouble than you can handle, and try not to get arrested. I can't bail you out, you know. I'll see you next time.